On April 11, 2026, the United States Navy sent 2 destroyers into the Strait of Hormuz, not to fire missiles, not to intercept ships, but to do something that no US warship has done in this waterway in nearly 40 years: hunt for mines. 20% of the world's oil moves through a corridor 21 miles wide. 138 ships moved through it every single day before February 28. On March 7, 2026, that number dropped to 1. 0 oil tankers, 1 cargo ship, a strait that carries 20 million barrels of crude daily went silent overnight. Iran mined it, and the worst part? Iran itself cannot tell you where every mine is. The boats that laid them worked fast, in darkness, without precise coordinates. The minefield is real, the map does not exist, and the US Navy is now crawling through it at 3 knots, looking for weapons that were designed to be invisible. This is not a remote corner of the ocean. This is the drain plug of the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz sits between Iran and Oman, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. Inside that gap, 2 shipping lanes, each just 2 miles across, separated by a 2-mile buffer zone. That is the entire passage. That is all there is. In normal times, 138 commercial vessels move through those lanes every single day. 20 million barrels of crude oil and petroleum products every 24 hours, roughly 1/4 of all seaborne oil trade on Earth. China sources 1/3 of its total oil supply through this water. Japan depends on it for 70% of its Middle Eastern imports. South Korea, India, Singapore, all of them feed through the same 2-mile corridor. There is no meaningful alternative. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have some pipeline capacity that bypasses the strait, but combined, those pipelines can reroute only 3 to 5 million barrels per day. The rest must come through here. This is not a choke point. It is the only pipe that feeds the world. And that is exactly why what Iran placed on the seafloor here is not just a military problem. It is an economic weapon aimed at the entire planet. To understand why the Navy is down there, you first need to understand what it is hunting. A naval mine is not a bomb, it is a trap, passive, patient, and invisible, designed to wait as long as it takes. They come in 4 types. Contact mines are the oldest design, moored to the seabed by a cable, floating just below the surface, detonating the moment a hull touches them. Bottom influence mines rest flat on the seafloor and trigger, not by touch, but by the acoustic rumble, magnetic distortion, or pressure wave of a passing ship. Drifting mines break free from their anchors, carried by currents, unpredictable, uncharted. Limpet mines are placed directly onto a hull by divers or small boats in the dark. Iran deployed 2 confirmed types in the Strait of Hormuz. The Maham-3 is a moored mine, activated by magnetic and acoustic sensors. No contact required. The Maham-7 is more dangerous. Its casing is fiberglass. It produces no magnetic signature. It sits flat and still on the seabed, and standard sonar struggles to distinguish it from rock. Each device costs tens of thousands of dollars to build and deploy. A single detonation under the right hull could trigger economic damage measured in the tens of billions. That cost asymmetry is not an accident. It is the entire strategic point. But the real danger is not the explosion. The real danger is what happens before anyone even finds the mine. Here is the problem nobody anticipated, including Iran. The Strait of Hormuz is shallow, 89 to 164 feet deep across the shipping lanes. In open ocean, sonar performs cleanly. Sound travels down, bounces off the bottom, returns a clear picture. In Hormuz, the water column is short enough that sound bounces off the seafloor and the surface simultaneously. The 2 signals collide. The result is acoustic noise, a wall of interference that masks small objects sitting on the seabed. The Maham-7 makes this worse. Its fiberglass casing produces no magnetic distortion, no metallic return. Standard magnetometers pass directly over it and register nothing. It rests flat, motionless, silent, indistinguishable from a rock, a piece of debris, a shadow on the seafloor. A detection probability per sonar pass in these conditions drops to between 60 and 70%. That means 1 pass in 3 finds nothing, even when something is there. False positives are constant. Every anomaly on the seabed must be investigated. Every investigation takes time, and currents complicate everything further. Mines that break free from their moorings drift with the water. No one tracks them, no one can. Now add this. US officials have confirmed that Iran itself cannot locate all the mines it deployed. The boats that laid them worked fast, small, low-profile craft running sorties through the night without precise GPS logging. Speed was the priority. Coordinates were not recorded. The minefield is real. The map does not exist, not for the US Navy, not for Iran. That is where the situation becomes even more dangerous, because the US Navy now has to find weapons that even Iran cannot find. The US Navy did not walk into this unprepared. It has spent decades building a system specifically designed for this problem. That system works in 3 layers: air, surface, and subsurface, each one targeting what the layer above it cannot reach. From above, Seahawk mine-hunting helicopters fly low over the water, sweeping the surface with laser pulses. The system detects floating and near-surface moored mines, the ones riding just below the waterline where a hull would find them first. Fast, wide coverage. But lasers do not reach the bottom. From the surface, unmanned boats, tow-influence sweep sleds through the shipping lanes. These sleds broadcast a simulated ship signature, magnetic field, acoustic rumble, pressure wave, attempting to trick mines into detonating at a safe distance. It works, until it does not. Iran's smart mines carry internal counters. A mine can be programmed to ignore the first 5 simulated passes and detonate on the 6th. Every non-detonation is ambiguous, neutralized, or waiting. From below, the knifefish mine-hunting drone enters the minefield alone. Built by General Dynamics, 19 feet long, it crawls at 4.5 knots, scanning the seabed with low-frequency broadband sonar for up to 16 hours per mission. It finds mines buried under sediment. It finds mines the surface sweep missed. It finds the ones that look like rocks. When the knifefish identifies a target, the archerfish takes over. A torpedo-shaped disposal drone, roughly 2 meters long, guided by cable back to operators outside the minefield. It approaches the device, places a shaped explosive charge, retreats, and detonates. One mine. One controlled explosion. Then the process begins again. Each mine requires individual treatment. There is no bulk clearance, no shortcut. Experts estimate the full operation will take 2 to 3 weeks at minimum, and that estimate assumes Iran does not attack the clearance crews with fast boats and shore-launched missiles throughout, which it has every incentive to do. And this is why the US Navy is worried, because the tools exist, but the clock is running faster than the tools can move. This is not a new playbook. Iran wrote it nearly 40 years ago, and the United States Navy has the scars to prove it read every page. 1987. The United States launched Operation Earnest Will to escort reflagged Kuwaiti tankers through the Persian Gulf during the Iran-Iraq War. The Navy swept the route, declared it safe. On the very first convoy, the very first day, the reflagged tanker Bridgerton struck an Iranian moored mine and listed heavily to one side. The Navy had missed one. In the hours that followed, 5 guided missile warships tucked into the damaged tanker's wake. The 300,000-ton hull that had just struck a mine was now the safest object in the water. The cleared path was not trusted. The wounded ship was. 1991. A USS Tripoli and USS Princeton both struck Iraqi mines during the Gulf War, 2 of the most advanced warships in the American fleet, damaged by weapons that cost a fraction of a single missile. The lesson was never forgotten. It was simply not acted on fast enough. In the current conflict, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps began deploying mines in the strait from around March 10, 2026. Small, fast boats, multiple sorties per night, low radar signatures, 28 mine-laying vessels were eventually intercepted or destroyed by US forces, but interception is not recovery. The mines those boats had already dropped stayed exactly where they landed, on the seabed, waiting. Iran's total mine stockpile before the conflict was estimated at between 2,000 and 6,000 devices. Because in Hormuz, One explosion can change the global economy overnight, and the history of this strait proves that it does not need to be a big explosion. The clearance operation is underway. 2 destroyers have transited the strait. Underwater drones are in the water. The Navy is moving. For a moment, it is tempting to believe the worst has been avoided. But what if one gets through? A single struck tanker does not just sink, it stops. A very large crude carrier is 400 meters of steel, longer than 4 American football fields, and it cannot be quickly towed, salvaged, or moved. One disabled hull in a 2-mile-wide shipping lane does not create a problem. It creates a wall. Every vessel behind it stops. The lane closes, and the cascade begins. The financial damage starts before the explosion. War risk insurance for a single Hormuz transit has already risen from 0.125% to between 0.2 and 0.4% of total vessel value. On the largest tankers, that increase alone adds $250,000 per voyage. Ship owners are doing that math every morning. Most are deciding to wait. 150 tankers are currently anchored outside the strait, burning fuel, going nowhere, waiting for a signal that the water is safe. Brent crude is already trading above $90 per barrel. The Dallas Federal Reserve estimates that a full closure, removing 20% of global oil supply, could push that figure to $98 per barrel and cut global economic growth by 2.9 percentage points in a single quarter. $1 billion every day. That is the cost of a closed strait, running continuously in the background right now. That is the math the Navy is racing against right now, today, at 3 knots. The clearance operation continues. The drones are in the water. The helicopters are flying. The destroyers are moving at 3 knots through a corridor that may or may not be safe. And somewhere on the floor of the Persian Gulf, a weapon is waiting. It has no radio, no receiver, no chain of command. It was not notified of any ceasefire. No diplomat signed a document on its behalf. Its rules of engagement have not changed by a single line since the night it was dropped from a fast boat in the dark. It is simply waiting for the acoustic signature of a hull passing overhead. The mine that struck the Bridgeton in 1987 cost less than $1,000. The disruption that followed cost billions. Today, in the Strait of Hormuz, a weapon that costs tens of thousands of dollars sits between the global economy and the oil it needs to function. 150 tankers are anchored. $1 billion per day is draining from global commerce, and the mine does not know. It was not told. It does not care. No mine in the history of warfare has ever surrendered. The question is not whether the US Navy can clear them. The question is whether it can clear them fast enough before one of them decides the answer for everyone. If this breakdown changed how you see what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz right now, hit subscribe. We do not cover the headlines, we go underneath them. Drop a comment below with the question you want us to disassemble next. And if you watch this far, you already know the most dangerous weapon in the world is not the one that fires back. It is the one that simply waits.